the recruiting front, I know that there's no real concrete news, but there's a few things out there of note that are being talked about in the chat, and a few things, Jason, that you mentioned to me before we jumped on in regards to just some recruiting notes.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think the good thing to report at this point, there's been no decommitments right now. Jackson Arnold really kind of reaffirmed his commitment to Oklahoma. Um, Last week, he was actually even a guest on Gabe Eichard and Teddy Lehman's podcast. So I think, given the fact that he's there and he's was on there and he's still actively recruiting some other guys for Oklahoma, I would say that's pretty. There's a lot of concern, I think, just kind of where Oklahoma's been this year and things like that. So I think his commitment's pretty about as solid as you can get at this point. Right, you never know. I'm sure he's got people banging at his door exactly with where Oklahoma's been this year and just how good of a year he's had, Mark. So I think that's first and foremost the positive news. I think, which is obviously going to be music to Oklahoma fans' ears. Really, just kind of talking about the fact that how he enjoys his relationship with Venables and things like that, and with the staff, but when Oklahoma has a bad year, there's a lot of negative recruiting that can have happen against them. So I think it's very interesting, Mark, when you look at some of the guys that Oklahoma has been going up against and things like that around with Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is arguably having just as bad or disappointing of a year as as Oklahoma is right now. You could make an argument that maybe A&M's a little bit worse based on the talent that they've had. They brought in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So again, that's one. I think Colton Voss, I think thing is a little bit fluid. He still hasn't decommitted or anything, but I think um, I think there's probably some interest with him in Texas and maybe even Oregon, which was part of that list. But he's not. He's still confirmed his commitment. I think the one thing that's really come across here over the last day or so is Anthony Evans is going to be taking a visit to Georgia on November 5th when Georgia hosts Tennessee. Everything that I'm aware of right now, I don't know that I don't believe it's an official visit. I think it's unofficial. So obviously that game, if both Tennessee and Georgia continue to play well, that's going to be just a dynamic atmosphere in Athens. So I think that is, you never know. I don't know if it's cause for concern at this point, Mark. It is, when you have guys that are taking other visits late in the cycle after, I mean, it is kind of concerning to a certain degree, but given the fact of, Oklahoma's underachieved based on where everybody expected them to be at this point this year, you've got to understand that to a certain degree that's coming, right? So, but there's going to be a lot of ebb and flow here the last, these next month and a half, couple of months until, well, it's really just a little bit over a month, I guess, until National Signing Day, and so you'll have. You may have some A&M guys, and there's a lot of rumors about some of these guys getting um, kicked off the team or some transfers happening. So, you'll have a lot of that'll happen. If Oklahoma happens to lose a couple of these recruits, I think they'll go hard on the portal. But like I said, good news is no one's decommitted yet, but it'll be interesting to see how some of this stuff goes. And if I'm an Oklahoma fan, I'm not really leading too much into this, but from everything that I've been told, DJ Hicks has not canceled his official visit to Oklahoma. He's still planning on having that visit to Oklahoma. He's been and you just it's hard to tell with kids and what they do on social media, but he's again, been very pro Oklahoma in some of his likes and mentions and stuff like that. But I still think there's obviously a very, very strong reason to believe that he'll be at A&M. But the fact that he has not, canceled that visit, and I think that the staff is really, um, still really pushing him, I think is an idea that maybe they feel like that they're still in the game a little bit. So